Thanks. That brings us to item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda by Trustee Gregorio, second by Trustee Williams. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Brings us to item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. Trustee Hanson, would you like to start?
Sure. Went door-to-door in Original Town last Friday with Trustee Sorelli and Trustee Pennington. And it was really just to get information on the impact of the floods with the Original Town residents, and then also give out information for those who might need some support. But it was a good learning experience. We learned a lot about we got to see where the damage the flood did, and just let residents know that the board does really care about this, and we'll do what we can to make sure everybody's made whole. 2 weeks ago, we did our second grade field trips with all 3 schools, El Dorado K-8, Superior Elementary School, and Monarch K-8, and Trustee Sorelli took part in that, Commissioner Folsom took part of that, and then town staff and the Historical Commission. And it was great to finally see all 3 schools involved. We had 250 second graders come through here to learn about the history of our town, see some of the artifacts in the museum, come learn about town government and how they can participate in town government even as second graders, and then see the Grasso Park and what it was like to live on a homestead in town. It was really good. So thank you to town staff and everybody that participated.
Great. Trustee Sorelli.
Much of what Trustee Hanson said, and in addition, I'd like to point out the Historical Commission had their annual tombstone tour last Saturday, which I didn't get to go on, and it was really questionable whether the weather would allow them, but they did have it, and all reports was quite successful, attended by somewhere between 70 and 90 people, and so something I'm going to definitely have on my calendar to do next year, and that's all I have.
Great. Trustee Skumatz.
I think just in interest of time, I'll just list the things. I don't think there was a lot of mystery, and a lot of the board members attended some of these with me. We attended a recreational public meeting, an input meeting on that with citizens, at least 2 finance committee meetings that we've had so far, and a really interesting meeting with citizens on flood damage in the Original Town. I think multiple trustees attended those. I went to a consortium of cities meetings last Wednesday that was very interesting, and about the flood damage in other communities and what they're doing to mitigate that for their residents as well as for the town, their town or city infrastructure. I attended our CAC meeting and also held a coffee buzz that was nicely attended by folks interested in both town center and in flood issues.
Thanks. I attended a variety of different meetings, but I think one of the take-home issues at the moment is that there's this Impact 64 discussion going on, which is suggesting an increase in the... Is the mic working? I don't know if they're...
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I'm doing my best speaking into it. So
You gotta speak louder.
I will try to speak louder. I wonder if the mic is working at all. But so Impact 64, which is their discussion about increasing sales tax statewide at a 0.7% for transportation and roadway improvements, and that's an ongoing discussion. Some of that money would potentially move up into the northwest quadrant here and help facilitate construction of rail transit, but that's ongoing. That's all I had. Trustee Williams.
I attended a number of meetings in Original Town. One was going door to door to check on residents to see what they needed from the town and what resources that we could do for them. I also did the Flood Busters program and helped with flood damage at one of the homes in Original Town. That was yesterday. Attended a couple of budget meetings and a flood meeting in Town Hall that we had a week ago, I suppose. Or has that been 2 weeks now? Okay, well, it's all flying into the last 2 weeks here. It seems like it's only been a day. I also attended a Superior Community meeting for indoor space, and that was a really good discussion and exercise on how to craft a building for square footage, what amenities, and how much it would cost to do such a thing. So it was a great exercise. And then I also had my first Fridays. That was Friday, October 3rd, the first Friday of the month. And had to cut that short. Normally it goes over a little bit, but we had a meeting afterwards that I had to attend. And my Dr. Cog meeting for this month is canceled for lack of agenda items. So I won't be reporting on that in a week or two, so.
Miraculous. Thanks.
Yeah.
Trustee Gregoris.
Yeah, like other trustees, attended the original town community meeting on the flood damage. Great turnout, a lot of great ideas that originated from the town members. And the indoor space community meeting that was awesome. That's one of the best presentations actually I've ever seen in my 7 years. I actually told Paul that he may want to structure some of his presentations in terms of cost in the way that they had done it, because it was great. So very well attended. I don't know if the second meeting on that Thursday night was equally as well attended. I went to the afternoon meeting.
Actually, it had more residents that attended the second meeting
that's
than the
great.
first meeting, which I think was good.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Great presentation. Thank you.
Trustee Pennington.
Did all the same things as these folks. In addition to that was OSAC monthly meeting, and it was brought up already in the budget discussion that they are proposing having an event the first Saturday of June to coincide with National Trails Day, and the preliminary suggestion is to have it at Colton Trailhead and have some events, special events for kids, and naturalists will be there, et cetera, et cetera. So that has to make its way through the budget process. Then on the weekly digest, there was quite an elaborate presentation on diverging diamond aesthetics. And while I took a somewhat close look at it, I'm hoping somebody on staff will really take a close look at that and make sure all those elements, because it had all the elements in there, will make sure they're copacetic with what we all put forth at the tail end. I think we met 4 times or something on that a year ago. And then on the Transportation Initiative 64, there's also an Education Tax Initiative 66 that's trying to make, that will be on the ballot. Is it possible to have like a League of Women Voters or something presentation, and we can have pro and con on both of those to educate our constituency on the merits or demerits of these particular things? Can we have that at Town Hall?
I'm sure we
before the
can.
election?
Impact 64 would be for a year from now.
Okay, 66 is on the
66 is
ballot.
on this ballot.
Yeah.
That's the education.
Right, and I don't know who we would get, but I certainly would like everybody to hear about it.
Great, thanks. Town Manager?
So, forgive me, I don't have my weekly digest in front of me, but if you have questions on anything over the last couple of weeks, I'm here to answer any questions you might have on that. But I don't have anything else to report. Sorry.
No worries. Questions from the board? Our town attorney is temporarily indisposed, so town clerk? All right, thanks. That brings us to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
I'm going first, George.
You're a gentleman.
Gladys Fortune, 404 South Third Avenue. Why can't the microphone system in this town hall be fixed?
Well, we're finding out right now.
We're working on it as we speak.
And my husband's complaining about the audio online. It's not working,
Okay.
or it's choppy, or it's sound, you can't hear anything. Just throwing that out.
This meeting is being taped, is that correct?
Yes.
I want to make sure that it is being taped. I also want documentation in the written minutes that the town of Superior, Boulevard County, Colorado had a massive flood on September 12th and 13th. Our regular town board meeting was not held on September 23rd when it should have been held. Now, I have no problem with staff going to conferences. However, I do have a massive concern that the laws are not followed by not having a regular town board meeting. And I want it documented so that the world knows that there was a flood that occurred, because there has been no acknowledgement from the town board in any of the meetings that this has occurred. Yes, there's been acknowledgement by flood meetings, but I'm talking about a regular town board meeting. There have been special meetings, there have been executive meetings. The town people have not been allowed to know what's been going on in those executive meetings. And that is absolutely wrong. We're sick and tired of being shut out. Now, I am sorry that the whole parcel across McCaslin Boulevard didn't totally wash down Coal Creek, so we would have no place for a town center. There was no sense to have these executive meetings and not include the residents in this town. And I want to know, one, number 9 tonight, the adoption of the resolution approving an agreement for cost sharing. Is there going to be public comment allowed at that? Because the public has not had any input in that cost sharing.
Yes.
There will be public comment allowed in number 9 tonight?
Of course.
Residents, I hope you heard that. The other thing is, I asked for a traffic and safety meeting last June. Kept getting put off, kept getting put off, kept getting put off. I want to know if I can have a traffic and safety committee meeting with them very, very soon to discuss the issues that I wanted to discuss last June. This is October.
We had one.
We had one. Yeah.
We did.
That, we had a traffic and safety committee meeting, yes, but what I wanted to discuss was not discussed. It was discussed, that meeting was regarding the bridge. There are other issues in this town, original
Well,
town.
that meeting actually had about 7 items on the agenda, but Matt, would you ask Alex to make sure to incorporate Gladys on the next agenda? You should have been incorporated, Gladys, on that. Apologize.
So how long is it going to be before I have to wait to have another town board, or another traffic and safety meeting?
When is our next
Is there one
meeting?
before the end of the year?
Aye.
I mean,
Let's have one.
is it subject to whenever we care to meet, or is there an actual plan of when we do meet?
When needed, I think.
So it's subject to when the committee wants to meet, if there's issues to meet on, or if sometimes an issue arises and then we schedule a meeting.
And so why can't a meeting be held when a resident asks for one?
It can be.
Okay.
It will be. We'll get
And
it
the
done.
last one, you know,
Like 7 things that we.
Give us
consider
credit.
a lot.
I jumped on that. I jumped on
The issue I wanted
that.
to discuss was not in that meeting.
Well, what is that issue so that we can put it in the minutes and put it in the next,
The streets.
the streets?
In original town.
All streets?
Particular one?
Pardon me?
Is there-
Any particular ones?
All the streets in original town.
And what's that?
Open and closed.
Are we, talking comprehensive, or?
Why don't you take that offline during the committee?
Okay.
So look, can we meet in 2 weeks? The next town board meeting?
You gotta talk to Alex.
Yeah, we need to.
Could you ask if we could? Thank you.
Anyway, I'm very stressed out, as well as other residents, that we have not had caring, supportive from our elected officials and appointed staff in this flood scenario. And it is to the point that the mayor and the town manager need to resign.
Thank you. George?
Well, for the minute time, I'm asking, what are we going to do about an exit for the people in the south end of town? We've had 2 catastrophes down there in the last month and a half, 2 months. and I haven't heard nothing from you board members what's going to be done.
We're working on it.
Working on it as we speak.
This is a high priority. It's a high
I
priority.
live here, work on it with you, huh? Let's not be left out, like Gladys said, and we're getting to the point that we're losing confidence in the town board. I am. I really am. The executive sessions, I don't approve of. You know that, Mayor.
I do.
But we're having one after another, one after another, one after. Let's get these in there on the top of the board. Let everybody know what's coming on. Personnel matters? Yes. But other than that, let's get it out in the open. It comes out eventually anyway. So let's have it to begin with. I would like to work with you in the exit out side of town. I haven't heard from any of you. I'm just disgusted with you, I'll tell you the truth. That's why I've been coming. When you get to discuss people, you stay away from them. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional public comments?
Pat Kaprowski, 208 3rd. Can you tell what the status is of the creek bed cleanup, the debris cleanup?
I don't know if staff, if you have an update about
I
urban
don't, but I
drainage.
can get with you this week and give you an
I
update.
understand FEMA's involved to some degree.
Yeah, we met with their designated FEMA official for the town on last Friday, so, but I don't have an update more than that, but.
We just want to get a fence up on the east side of our property to secure the property. We get people walking in there, I think, just lucky living in.
Right,
living
I
outside.
understand.
It is a hazard.
Yeah. So if you want to give my office a call tomorrow or something, I'll give you an update.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Additional public comments? Okay. With that brings us to item number 6, presentations. We have a couple this evening, and starting out with Colorado Municipal League presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Kevin Bauer is here. He's the Deputy Director for the Colorado Municipal League, and I asked him and Sam Mannett as well if one of them could come tonight and speak to the board about, we have the upcoming state legislation that's about to go into session, and the Municipal League is great about tracking certain bills that have a direct impact on municipalities and keeping us informed and being an advocate for cities and towns, especially small towns like ours who don't have a lobbyist on staff. That the Municipal League is a great resource for us, so thought they could come down and give you an update on what they see coming forward. You could ask them questions and have a dialogue. So
Very good. Thanks, and welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Kevin Baumer, Deputy Director of the Colorado Municipal League. My first time in this building, I regret to say. I've been to a lot, but should come to Superior. I just live down the road in Westminster right now. But anyway, pleasure to be here. I know some of you quite well, and some of you are not met, but I work for all of you. You are, as board members of the town of Superior, members of the Colorado Municipal League, and you, along with 266 other municipalities in the state, leaves only 4 stragglers out there. You are all of our members. We work for you, and as Matt said, represent your interests in the State House collectively, and first and foremost try to defend home rule and local control. Also, as you know, many of you know quite well, we also provide information services, webinars, publications, workshops to help you and staff do what you do better, learn more, get more experience. Annual conference every year as well. And we're there as an information resource. Any one of you at any time is always welcome to call if you have a question about something of municipal interest. Give us a holler. We don't know the answer right away. We try and find out. We work with elected officials, we work with the managers, we work with the attorneys, and again, my job as deputy director, outside of anything within the organization, I also manage our advocacy program. So January to May, the thumping sound that you might hear is my head against the wall down the granite walls of the State House, marble walls of the State House, from time to time having to bang heads. I like coming to board meetings and council meetings, whether everyone's happy or everyone is not.
the government closest to the people. It gets really close sometimes, but that's a good thing.
What makes you say that?
It gets really close sometimes, but this is where the action's at, municipal government. This is where people live, where people work. They care about their towns. You care about your towns. And that's something that I enjoy coming out, taking back when things get difficult at the State House, because we want to try and preserve that and make sure that your decisions are kept yours and not made by state officials at the State House. And we've got a tough session coming up. I won't lie about that. There are always tough sessions, but this is an election year, and that always adds a little interesting twist to it. And then we've got some very dynamic politics going on at the same time. I live down the road, the next Senate district over, which is going to be a focus here for the next couple of months. And depending what happens with the potential recall election, if it goes all the way like the last two did, it could flip the Senate. And that divides.
Which one is this?
This is Senator Hudak.
That's back
There are paid
alive?
circulators, or there are circulators, I don't know if they're paid, that have started gathering signatures. And you know, the beauty of working for you all is we don't have to get involved with any of that. Municipal League is nonpartisan. We represent cities and towns. And so we get to go down there, and I always know who I work for and who we represent. We don't have to get involved with any of the partisan stuff, but we have to pay attention to it. We have to pay attention to where the votes are and where the votes aren't, making sure that you're represented. This is going to be a very dynamic year. There's a few critical issues that are coming up. I want to mention them. Let me mention a little bit about, for those of you who aren't familiar, how we come up with the items on which we lobby at the State House. You have in your packet a copy of the CML policy statement that is adopted every year at our annual conference by the members. Changes are proposed, if there are any, through the policy committee. This is sort of a living, breathing document, as it's been mostly unchanged for certainly my 14 years at the league, and a lot of time before that. But we've added elements along the way. We didn't have a section on water for the longest time. Did that about 6 years ago. But it's sort of our Bible of policy positions, municipalities going into the State House. In our policy committee, again, looks at that every year, makes recommendations, if any, for changes, and the membership at our annual conference ultimately approves or changes them. But there's a lot of other stuff that happens that is, detailed, goes beyond the broad policy statement issues. And we have mentioned our policy committee. That's our main policy body at the Municipal League. It is made up of members of our member cities and towns that choose to have a policy committee representative. And then from that group, we got a meeting on Friday that'll be, I think, probably about 80 municipal officials, I think, is what I'm expecting. Sometimes it's been more than that. Never more than the fire code allows, but it's been wildly popular. Our policy committee will take recommendations that come from within the committee. Some staff brings based on things that we think are coming, and the policy committee will make recommendations to the CML board for policy positions for anything not already enumerated in the policy statement. We go into the legislative session with all of that. All that being said, might not surprise some of you that people don't always tell us what they're planning on doing legislatively, so some things do come as a surprise, but here's what I think at least the basics are going to be. We're going to see stuff on flood recovery issues, to the extent that the state has a role, or more importantly, legislators that want to carry bills think the state has a role. We'll see some legislation on that. And there's probably some, we learn from these things, we always do. There's probably some things that will be looked at in terms of state support for municipalities and residents, counties, and how to be ready should, God forbid, this ever happen again. And then always the intergovernmental aspect. How did state agencies work with local governments and citizens in making a bad situation be as smooth as possible in terms of getting recovery. Transportation, you mentioned, Mayor. big issue. Unfortunately, I don't know that the General Assembly is going to do much with it this year. That's certainly something that we've talked a lot about. The Impact 64 proposal, along with the gas tax increase and including the sales tax, state sales tax on fuel sales have all been raised as possible revenue raising efforts to deal with state and local cities, state and local transportation and transit issues. If there is anything, it would be proposed for the ballot next year. But right now, we're not seeing any real consensus around any one of those. It's early. I also think that Amendment 66, Initiative 66 rather, how that plays out may have some impact on the stomach going forward, even though one's education, one's transportation. I think there will be people trying to read the tea leaves on the appetite for sales tax increases on transportation. Right now, the League supports additional revenue for transportation projects, but have not settled on support for any one particular solution yet. Urban renewal. Well, it's a perennial topic, and it's one that municipalities have used as first and foremost a tool to ameliorate blight conditions and to deal with brownfields and infill redevelopment. There are folks that want to change that mechanism to the point where we think that it would become unusable for local governments, and that's a problem. We could spend hours talking about urban renewal. Our position is we defend the traditional use of urban renewal, and going forward, we'll be looking at potential legislation that we may very well have to oppose that would take that away. We'll be looking to our members. We had a meeting today with some of our urban renewal folks, and we'll have that in a policy level discussion. We'll include a lot of folks. I know it can be a contentious issue, but as a tool in the toolbox, we don't want to see it taken away, and we'll be working on that going forward. The other ballot item that will be on this fall's ballot is Proposition AA, dealing with retail marijuana sales tax. It's a state sales tax that would be collected at the point of sale for municipalities and counties that have not opted out. If it passes, some of that will be shared back with those municipalities and counties. It becomes an enforcement issue, and whether or not there's revenue available for the state to be able to do that. The impacts go beyond cities that are licensing and selling. It's a statewide issue, and so whether or not a municipality is opted out or not, there still is a statewide issue that we need to pay attention to. The League supports Proposition AA for that purpose, and helped get that on the ballot through legislative referendum during the session. And just last, balance of power issues. Again, I mentioned we've got an interesting session coming up already with the recalls having created an effect within the Senate, which is now 18-17, still same party in control, both houses, but how these outside influences will impact the session, it's important. What's most important is making sure that your voices are heard. We encourage, again, whether you're a member of a policy committee or not, or have ever picked up the phone and calls before, I want to hear what's going on. And you can call me anytime. My boss, our executive director, Sam Mamet, sends his regrets, but can definitely be reached with a phone call or an email. Those of you who have done that know it doesn't take long to get a reply. So I'll stop talking, see what questions you have on anything specific. But again, it's just my pleasure to be here and continue to represent you.
Great. Thank you so much for coming this evening. I appreciate it. Questions from the board?
Just one quick question about the urban renewal. What's the opposition to that? And who's behind that?
Well, it's complex because it's more than just one issue and more than just one party to it. But I'll give you a couple of the easy ones. There are within Colorado counties, our sister organization that represents county boards of commissioners, there is a proposal that has been put forth by their legislative committee to have legislation introduced that would give counties and special districts official standing in urban renewal projects and with the ability to negotiate an acceptable agreement. That sounds fine when you say it like that. I mean, who doesn't want to be able to negotiate an acceptable agreement? The problem is that what that has boiled down to in discussion is very simply that some individuals within the counties want to have money up front before, without having any risk in the outcome of the project, and certainly long before any revenue to retire those bonds is ever realized. That's a problem in the sense that if you don't have it, you can't give it, and therefore the project never occurs. So you never get past point A. The other issue is a more complicated issue dealing with school finance and how the increment created on the school property tax is required to be backfilled by the state and the state education dollars that are required to do that. And that's something that is there and something we need to be aware of as we see legislation come forward and be able to articulate our position on it. At the end of the day, just to put it very simply, that as the project turns a blighted area into something that is vibrant, where there is retail and where there is property tax, when that TIF reaches, when that urban renewal project, the TIF reaches full maturity, the benefit back to the other parties and the state of Colorado in sales tax and property tax revenue will far exceed anything that may have to be committed in the short term. But also at the end of the day, cities and towns and counties and special districts can sit down and talk about that. There's nothing preventing that now. It happens all the time. And so folks that want to short circuit that and just kill the tool to begin with, that's what we're facing right now.
Thank you.
Other questions? Any questions from the residents? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it once again.
All right, I'll come back here before I have to go to the State House. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and we don't have any marble here, so you don't have to worry about banging your head against it. Let's see, with that, brings us to the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. Heather Crawford with the Superior Chamber of Commerce. First, I want to say thank you for the time on the agenda each month. We do appreciate it. And in that, I just have two items to discuss. One, hopefully you saw the actual email that came out from the town staff today that announced we have 2 businesses in town. So I want to say thank you to staff for putting that out, as well as say it publicly. We have a new Great Clips located right over here at the Superior Marketplace. And then we have a new diner that's located over by Safeway in this Rock Creek Village that is called Doug's Day Diner. And I personally have had 2 friends who have enjoyed a very tasty meal this weekend. So hearing very good reviews, and obviously all of us are very excited to have them in town. Second item would be for the chamber itself is we are in the process of putting together an outreach survey to the actual residents and really to the general public to ask them, 1, do they know we exist? 2, to see if they know what programs and resources that we have available at our hands. So it's an effort to continually educate, as you do as a board of trustees and as the town staff does. But it's something I wanted to give you a kind of a taste of. We will be discussing with our board of directors this month, and I will report back more on that. So I wanted to keep you updated.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the chamber?
Then we have 2 new businesses.
It is awesome. Thank you. And thank you to town staff for putting something out to the community about that. That brings us to item number 7, consent agenda. And on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees of the August 19, 2013 special meeting, the August 22nd, 2013, and the September 9th, 2013 meetings. The September 30th, 2013 special meeting, the October 4th, 2013 special meeting, and the October 7th, 2013 special meeting. Acceptance of the meeting notes of the Historical Commission, the Open Space Advisory Committee, and the Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Trails Advisory. And final reading of an ordinance amending Section 1-3-20 of the Superior Municipal Code to increase the maximum fine for code violations in accordance to the state law. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda by Trustee Skumat, second by Trustee Sorelli. Discussion?
Yeah, I'm going to
Trustee
abstain
Hanson.
from the minutes on September 9th because I was not in attendance.
Thank you.
And likewise for August 26th.
Okay.
There was one I was not at, so you said.
August 26th, Cindy.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. So that brings to item number 8, contingency grant funding, proposal to reallocate remaining 2013 monies to a special fund set up for services for 2013 Superior flood victims. Mr. Magley.
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, the board had directed staff to contact the one applicant we had received for the fourth quarter contingency funds and let them know that due to the circumstances of the flood event that the board had wished to allocate those funds to help those that were impacted by that flood. Our town attorney, Kendra Carberry, she's worked with us as far as trying to set up a fund through the town, which we're not able to do because of we're a statutory town. But Beth, do you have information on a fund set up yet?
No.
Okay, so we're working with the chamber. We thought the chamber would be a good partner to set up a fund since they're a nonprofit already. And then if this is the board of town wishes to see a foundation or something set up in the future for maybe future events that we might have, hopefully we don't, but we probably will, so we can work on doing something like that as well. But the short term is to do some partner with the chamber to set up a fund.
Trustee Pennington.
Could this include the concept of the memorials that we bandied about a little bit at the Historic Commission?
We'll look into it.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what you mean.
Why don't you describe your
What it
trees
is,
and benches?
You've heard it numerous times, it's not clicking with you. When people die and you want to make bequests in their name, that they could be made to the town of Superior for use as the town has prioritized or whatever.
Thanks.
Or this organization that's set up.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Just a question. So it seems like the chamber is a pretty good organization for this. We do have the Superior Improvement Foundation. Is that a foundation that could be done for that, or I'm not sure that we'd want to use that for?
That's one for our town attorney.
So in terms of setting up a foundation, the town does run a foundation. Is that a type of foundation that could be used for
Yes, we could
allocating
use
funds
that.
for that?
If we have a foundation already set up.
The Superior Improvement Foundation.
Yeah, we could use that, sure.
Could you explain what that is?
Actually, I'm not sure I can do a good job explaining the Superior Improvement Foundation. It's an overarching organization that helps us do some of the functions that we do, but the town attorney probably can describe that better.
It was set up originally to deal with the districts so that there's a director's parcel for the district, and it's very confusing. I'm not going to be able to do this in an intelligible way right now, but the Superior Improvement Foundation was set up to help trustees transfer ownership in the director's parcel, basically. But it can be used for this purpose. We could certainly expand it to be used for this purpose if we need to.
It'll speed things up. It sounds like a good idea to me.
I'm not sure it will speed things up because
we probably
I
have
have
to
to actually go back and look at the bylaws and the articles, and they may need to be changed.
Yeah, my guess is for this time, it's probably the chamber might be the most sense, and then we could talk about things like that down the road.
Exactly. And some of my clients have set up foundations that they just sort of hold separately for purposes like this when they need them. So that's also something we can look at moving forward, either making the Superior Improvement Foundation ready to do this on a shorter term.
That would make sense.
So we can certainly look into that.
Okay, thanks. No more questions or comments from the board? Public comment regarding this particular issue? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Skumat?
Oh, never mind.
There's not a resolution. It's
Oh.
just a...
I don't have a resolution title.
There's a
I guess,
resolution.
should I just make up
There
my own
wasn't
language?
one.
But yeah, just make up your own that...
I'd like to move that that the town move forward in developing a viable option for a nonprofit or foundation that will allow us to set up a fund for Superior flood victims.
And that the monies from the contingency grant would flow to that organization.
There you go.
Okay.
As well as other,
Other monies to be
Yep.
raised.
And/or donations.
Okay. So that's a motion. Is there a second? Trustee Gagos, any further discussion regarding this issue? Seeing none, Phyllis?
Cirelli?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Pennington?
yes.
Skumas?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to item number 9, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement for a cost-sharing agreement for the Superior Town Center, STC, between the Superior Urban Renewal Authority, RC Superior, and STC Metropolitan Districts. Mr. Magley? Or perhaps the town attorney, however you'd like to proceed.
Well, did you want, was the board going to have discussion on this item tonight, or did you want to just table it to Friday, a special meeting?
Special meeting to be had on Friday at 5 PM.
So the answer is yes, but whether or not anybody in the town wants to speak to this particular issue, or if the applicant, or not really the applicant, but
They may have someone in the
if they have something that they want to speak to about this particular issue, but maybe you can describe where we're at the moment.
The cost-sharing agreement is an agreement for the town center development that basically pledges the revenue that's generated through the Superior Urban Renewal Authority, the tax increment finance revenue, to the districts to help pay off bonds that would be issued to pay for the public improvements built in the town center project. So there's some still language and outstanding issues that we need to work through, which is why we can continue it to Friday special meeting at 5 p.m.
Okay.
And can I just ask a couple questions?
Certainly.
So that meeting, Friday at 5 PM, is that a public meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And is there going to be an executive session before that or after that?
Hopefully not after.
It wasn't planned unless
Okay.
directed by the board.
So it's a complete public meeting at 5 PM on Friday?
Correct.
Okay, so is it possible that people who are here could speak for public comment on this issue tonight?
Yes, so that would be my recommendation. So, but it's from the board at the moment.
And are you saying not, for them not have any access to the mic on Friday then?
No.
No, they can do it also Friday.
Certainly.
My concern is just Friday at 5 o'clock is usually happy hour, so unless we have happy hour
Come on down.
in this meeting, I'm assuming that most people won't be coming.
Anything else from the board at the moment? Anything else for town attorney, anything that you want to speak to? Anything from the applicant that wants to speak to this issue tonight?
Yeah, Larry Hirschfeld for developer.
Are the mics working?
They're not working, so you have to speak up a little bit, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I guess we are wondering whether, as long as we're here, we should use this time to at least be sure we understand where we're starting from and what...
So what I'd recommend is...
As you might imagine, we're quite worried about October 31st being our drop dead date, and in fact, ensuring that our investor understands that this, what's going on, because I'm not sure, we're 100% sure what's going on. So,
that's fair enough. You know, I don't know if you want to speak to any particular issues, just to inform us or the public, and I don't think we're going to have a lot of back and forth negotiation during the meeting, but if you have important points that you want to bring up for us to consider, then I think that would be reasonable. Or we can talk about it on Friday. It's whatever your pleasure is.
well, I think we're concerned about important economic issues that we're told the board is asking us to change that have informed our entire process and impact the economics in material ways. We're happy to work with the board. We want to be sure that we're talking from the same page, and so this is, we'd like to understand where the board thinks we are, perhaps look at what agreements have already been executed, at least so we have a starting point. We're happy to work with the board to the greatest extent we can, even if we have prior agreement on points. But there are certain things that materially impact economics, and at this late date, we don't think we can change, so we're just concerned how the process will go, and why not take advantage of the time here, and as well as Friday.
So my personal recommendation to the board is that we don't do that. It's just that we don't want to get us boxed into a particular corner without getting legal advice. I think that just becomes unwieldy. So, not that we're trying to be obstructionist in any particular way. I just think it's in our personal best interest to
However, we
proceed
can
that way.
hear from him, right? If
That's
there
my
are
recommendation, if there are
specific
specific
issues you
issues.
want to address, obviously, you know what the sticking points are. So we're here to listen to you.
Okay, well,
Can we put in the PowerPoint?
I'm good with it.
I think that would be okay.
Just give us 1 minute.
Yeah, that's fine.
Before we start.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about 2 minutes.
You know what, if you wanted to,
Just pick one.
Take 5 minutes.
Whatever you like.
Take 5 minutes.
Just 2 minutes.
yeah, that's fine. I was just saying, we could move on to 10 and then come back, whatever board's pleasure, or we take public comment, whatever.
Public comment?
Well, we may not want to take public comment while they're out of the room, because they probably want to hear that.
Yeah.
Sure. So it's up to you, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They will have to clear everybody and bring it back.
Yep.
But it's
Or otherwise, we could
it's a short
otherwise we could have,
It's a
you know,
short matter.
soothing music at the moment while we're waiting for people. But if people have other comments unrelated to this particular issue.
I'm just going to ask when they come back in, if you could explain what the issue is that apparently is difficult to talk about. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a little hard to say the least, to discuss our negotiations at the moment, so.
I have something if the board wants to discuss something.
Okay.
Totally. So you've all received the Rock Creek Village monument sign.
Yeah.
Different concepts that have been laid out. Kind of the direction, your feedback I've gotten has kind of been all over the place. So my question is to the board, if you're interested still in partnering with the owner on a monument or tenant sign, and if you liked any of the 3 concepts.
Is there 3 concepts?
So-
I didn't,
Well, there was the 2 at the corner of Rock Creek Parkway and Colton Road.
What was the
That
second?
existing stone
Right.
monument, right? And then the new tenant sign that was going to go just west of there at that entrance.
That first proposal.
That was the first proposal you saw.
And refresh on the 2. One was the transparent signs,
Right.
and what was that blue side or whatever, and what was the other one?
Oh,
good.
Passes that out.
Oh, let's make it a little bit easier.
You were quick.
Can you, Assistant Town Manager, can you project any of these? In case the public-
Yeah, just hit escape and...
I've got a favorite.
Just like that.
The position of the by definition, it's just remuneration, they have to be headed excavation to see it. This one is seeable from all 3 tiers. Plus, this can be
You want to tie it three ways for me? So this is one of the concepts on the...
This is crazy.
Doesn't work.
So,
Hard to read.
looks tasteful, but busy, illegible, and provides no benefit.
And I'm wondering, wait, and I'm saying one, so it's two with two different colored lettering, so that's...
They're both hard to read, though.
They're both not helpful.
And I think there's ways to make it easy to read with block letters and it not being italics. So I think, it's, if anyone's wanting words.
That transparent plexi or whatever that is causes the texture of the stone to fight with the printing, so I would,
And when it gets dirty, it's going to be hard to read it beyond.
while the next one you're going to show is busier, I like it a lot better.
You like that one?
I hate it.
I would modify it to make it less schmaltzy, but at least you can read it. Schmaltzy means sort of cheap and schmaltzy.
That's the only one that looks...
So the last one, I think, would make us look like Sheridan or some...
This one?
No, the previous.
The colorful one.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
No.
absolutely gaudy.
To me, it can be done in a tasteful manner. What I want to draw your attention to on this one is how much easier it is to read than the that clear
Fair enough.
of the other one.
I can
So
read that they're-
if you unify the color of the blocks for the shops, all to one color, all with one color of lettering on it, you can make it tasteful. It's schmaltzy now because all the colors differ and all that kind of stuff, but at least that has potential too.
Well, isn't that what the other one does? The red and white one?
Huh?
Go back to the red and
The
white.
problem with the red and white one it has to be placed somewhere that limits the traffic that will see it. This way it was, you had to be sort of westbound, past Rock Creek Parkway to see it, or you had to look across the median going eastbound on Colton.
At least it's legible.
I like this sign.
The one in the corner,
Right?
the one in the corner makes sense is the location.
I think it might be
because
necessary, though, right?
At
You
any
just
point of where
have
you're
somebody
coming
there.
from, you would have a choice, or a chance to read it, but here you might not.
Right.
So, and then the fourth alternative is to start over and...
Yeah, I don't like it.
My suggestion is try to improve on this approach.
On this one?
No,
Not sure there's-
it look nice there.
I'm not sure there's-
It's much more readable by unifying colors and print.
I'm not seeing a lot of, Trustee Pennington, I'm not seeing a lot of support.
Well, I'm going to keep going. I've got support.
You know what would help is, I like the fact that we're using their logos instead of using just block letters or whatever. But the fact that it's all in different colors is, difficult. It looks cheap, but
It's too hard.
I like the idea that they could put their own logo on there, but that would make sense to me.
But if we banded them all in a bronze band and had a plate,
the only thing.
we could unify it with the bronze lettering. I think it has potential.
Okay.
Monument.
Trustee Skomats?
Actually, mine's on a different issue, so...
Oh, that's fine. So it sounds like there's some interest in pursuing options, but I think you've had feedback about particular things.
Have you run this by the tenants?
Are we the only two that like this one, or?
I don't know.
I'm open to that. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think any of this is going to
Signs out there.
improve.
difference,
I don't think
but-
it's going to make any difference, but... Okay, Trustee Skomats, if you want to do something else, then...
The other thing I wanted to raise, 2 seconds, is that, we bend over backwards to get public input on the rec stuff. I think we should bend over a little bit backwards to get input on the exits from original town. And I would like to see a community process, but not as elaborate a community process as we get on rec. It's super expensive. I think it's overkill. I think we
And
need something
Alex has
simple.
done some, but I'll talk to him and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome back.
Larry Hirschfeld again. I suppose that we will heed your advice, and rather than give a presentation we prepared, unless the board would like us to, what we want to be sure is clear is that when we started this process, there were important agreements that we entered into which set forth for us the economic terms under which we would go forward. And we relied on those as we invested a very significant amount of money to get from here to there. Millions of dollars, both to keep the land tied up and to engage all the experts that were involved in getting the PD amended. We want to be sure that there's that we all have that same understanding, those agreements reasonable. And as we went through the process and we did things like reduce the densities from 2,400 to 1,400, which some of the board we think really wanted, as we reduced the scale of the buildings and so forth, we did that in the context of what our overall economics were based on those original agreements. Having said that, we very much want to be the best partners we can be with the board and accommodate those things that we can accommodate, keeping the economics in place. And so if it's your advice that we try and get that done this week without going through what those agreements say, I guess what I would hope to know is that we'll have some ability on Friday to have a discussion, and to the extent there's still any issues that we can fix them on Friday, because I have work to do even with our investors as I speak right now, because this is going to be quite a surprise that we're not hearing this tonight. And there's obviously concern that having come this far, whereas we thought we were implementing agreements that had already been agreed, that there's significant economic changes that the board wants from what we think has been agreed already. And as I said, we've had conversations about accommodating many of those even up to this meeting. I apologize for the lateness in which you got the agreement. I understand there's frustration about that. I'm not sure why that happened. The drafts have been circulating for months, really. I think there was an effort to try and get it done in a short period of time. We realized that there were still open issues and that we didn't realize were open. I think to summarize what the presentation would be, I'm not sure we need to go through it agreement by agreement, is that the original agreements were really important to us. We have relied on them. The economics really do matter here. And having said that, we will try to do what we can with the town. I'm not sure we can do everything that's been asked of us, but we'll do what we can between now and Friday. And then we just ask that on Friday we have the time it takes, if it takes a lot of time, to get it approved, because that's probably it.
I think we're all on the same page with that.
Need the direction for our turn.
Okay.
Just one more thing that I want to say, for both of you, we're very mindful of your deadline, so that's why we're not postponing this to the next meeting, which is the 28th, and we're trying to do it this week.
Will the full board be available on Friday?
Yes.
Because the board has nothing else to do on a Friday evening.
We appreciate that.
A lot of date nights are being ruined.
Okay, so.
But I believe Trustee Pennington is bringing margaritas.
I will if anybody would allow me.
Sometime after the meeting.
No alcohol.
No alcohol. I don't want to break any laws.
So at the end of the day, I think that we're trying to come up with, let's say, a reasonable accommodation between our side, your side, so that we can, I think we're all interested in having the project move forward. We just have to come up with some meeting of the minds, which I'm sure that our attorneys will be able to craft. Okay. Anything else? Some public comment?
Thank you.
Yeah. Public comment, yeah.
Just same question.
You can have to
Sorry.
talk to the mic.
For those of us who thought something was going to happen tonight, but we didn't quite know what, I mean, we've got a big issue, and I'm curious, since I've been here sitting for a while, if somebody can kind of encapsulate, so where's the sticking point that we're running into in terms of financing? Because it sounds like there's a pretty big difference of opinion about where we thought we were going and where we are now.
Can we say that's executive session?
I'm trying to come up with some generic response to you. I'm not trying to be obfuscatory, I believe that's the word. But then again, we can't really divulge what we've been talking about with our attorney at the moment. So it boils down to money. How about that? So, sorry. I wish I could be a little more, I'm not trying to be unclear. That's just the issue, unfortunately. Additional public comment?
Rita Dozell, Superior resident. My confusion resonates with Mr. Hirschfield's. I'm very confused. Don't know what we're doing, and not sure why we're doing it. We had a work session scheduled on September 16th to together collaborate and figure this out for this very issue. And that got canceled, but replaced, I think, with an executive session, which we don't know what happens in those things. And then we were supposed to have it on the agenda for September 30th. That got canceled, replaced with an executive session. So now here we are tonight, got the packet on Saturday for tonight, started reading through it, trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. The big issue should have been the first issue, and it was the 9th issue. And then now I'm sitting here going, okay, we seem to have the maximum SURA obligation. Some places called obligation, some places it's called something else. About $119 million. Okay, that's nothing changed. We've always had it 109, 110, 119. It's always been that number. So there's no change there. The maximum SUR obligation from the town of Superior is still $110, $120 million. The estimate for incremental taxes, and I'm only talking about TIF now, tax increment financing, not district financing with 50 additional mill levies. So the estimate for incremental taxes over the 25-year period is still about $120 million. Okay? We see a shake of the head no. The last time we talked with you, Matt, in your office, that's what it was. So
I'm just going off what you're reading in the packet there.
I'm not reading from the packet, I'm reading from my notes.
Well, your notes. So
Yes.
the estimated now is 89 million at 119 million.
89 is a 75%. I'm talking about how much tax revenue will we receive based on the plan that's been, the PD plan that's been approved. What is the estimate of the tax revenue, not the TIF that we're going to reimburse back to the districts, but what's the estimate of the tax revenue? That's the only number we need to be concerned about tonight or Friday. If it's still 120 million, we're kind of synced up. We've pledged 120 million. We think we're going to get $120 million in taxes from the property. Now, we have $120 million to play with. We've always had that number, even in the financing agreement and in the original development agreement, 109 million for TIF. No, we're only talking TIF. So then, now we've come up with this 75-25. I have no idea what that is. I mean, if I was a developer, I'd be sitting here saying, what the heck is that? Because are we, the town of Superior, pledging 120 million, or are we pledging $86 million? What are we pledging? If we think we have $120 million coming from tax revenue, pledge the frickin' $120 million. Now let's figure out what will the town get for that $120 million. If you're going to float bonds, let's say we float $50 million of bonds, how much will that bond cost us over 25 years? It's going to be more than $50 million. Usually it's 2.5 to 3 times. So if you got $50 million of improvements that you need to float a bond to pay for, how much additional bond do you have to float to pay for the tax? I'm sorry, the interest associated with that improvement cost. So if we can get $50 million of improvements, and it's going to cost us 2.5 times that, or 3 times that, we're going to have a cost of $120 to $150 million. Guess what, how much tax revenue we think we can get off this property? So what we get down to is how much public improvements can we get for $120 million? That's not $120 million of public improvements. That's some amount of public improvement plus the cost of financing that public improvement. Now, we have an estimate here, Exhibit A, or B, or C, or D, I don't know what it is, that says it's $129 million or something like that. It includes fees that will come from one-time fees for sewer and water and tap fees and things like that. You need to put that aside. You look at what's left of really public improvements, you have $50.1 million. We can fund with TIF $50 million listed on your Exhibit A, minus this stuff that's all tied up in, wait a second, you get that out of one-time fees. When you do a tap fee, when you do developer's fee, when you do building permits, you do all this other kind of stuff. That stuff gets covered over there. But we have this other stuff up here, all these other things, including $10 million for some civic facility that isn't very clearly defined. And it's not clear whether or not all the people of Superior should be able to take advantage of a civic facility that's being tax financed by just the Superior Town Center folks. We need to really think about that. I think if I'm going to have a civic facility that I want to go to and participate in, I should be taxed too, not just those people over there. Because that's what we're talking about here, using TIF from just those people to pay for a civic facility that all of us want to use. So we have a couple of issues here, but we don't have an issue as far as you've already given the approval to the developer for $120 million of tax financing. The only question we have left is, what improvements will we get out of that $120 million? And it's not $120 million worth. So if we only get $50 million of improvements, who's going to pay for the rest? That's the question.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Well, I had,
And how are you, just for the record?
Hi, Brent Bickle, El Dorado Drive, Superior. You know, as we went through in August, and I thought that, you know, everything had been approved, I had heard that this was a meeting that was causing apparently some concern through the grapevine. So I looked through the plan and I read through it. If we're talking about, and I don't know, because I guess there's been the executive sessions, but if we're talking about this agreement, you know, I read through it and I thought it looked pretty much like what everybody talked about. I think one of the things here that, and I don't know because I don't know what you guys have been talking about, but just from what this says, this isn't like, you know, that we give the developer an ATM code and they can just pull out $100 million. You know, it says that they have, these are costs that they are going to spend to build the streets, the roads, the infrastructure for this project. And then this financing arrangement is what pays them back. And it's not like just because it says it's $120 million that necessarily means how much of it is. If the development doesn't work out, if they're not building as much as they thought they would, if we don't need as much structured parking, if we decide we want to have more surface parking, well, those numbers can change. And for them to get reimbursed by this, they have an independent third-party person that has to review what they did, they have to approve it, and then everyone has to agree on it. So I guess I do agree with Ms. Dozel in that I'm kind of working here from a lack of knowledge because I don't really know what a lot of the confusion is, but it seems to me like it might not be in the best interest of the town to try to limit the flexibility of this agreement, because it seems in some ways it could almost work in the town's benefit to have a larger number than you need than a smaller number. And maybe that's just ignorant on my part, I don't know. But I read it, I mean, Ms. Carberry, I guess, drafted it, and it's excellent. So I don't have any concerns with, at least with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment regarding this particular issue?
Yeah, hi there, I'm Rochelle Rittmaster, I'm a 12-year resident, I live in Sagamore, I'm also a planning commissioner. As a planning commissioner, we got presented concepts, and so we voted based on concepts, but I'm here to speak tonight about what we're here for, which is regarding the financial side of this, which I have great concerns about, given the size of our town, the general lack of diversity of our town. We're basically a bedroom community. We don't have a lot of a broad economic base. And when I look at some of these numbers, and when I compare them to truly major TIFs that have taken place in the last decade in the Front Range, and I'm thinking of Belmar, and I'm thinking of Stapleton, I just look at this and say, we are so out of proportion to the size of our town, to the amount of acreage that will be developed, and this isn't even as difficult as Belmar and Stapleton, which was a redevelopment. So first you have to tear down before you can build back up. I thoroughly object to the $40 million or so that would be translated into what would be the tap fees that would come to the town, just like anybody else who would come to our town, buy a home in a development, and within the cost of that home, there are the tap fees. Now, whether the developer chose to mark them up a bit or whatever, that home buyer probably will never know exactly what they paid, but that money came right into the town and became true, ready cash coming to the town for that. To even conceptualize why we would put those kinds of fees into a 25-year scheduled plan on our dollar, when these are going to be readily paid as each and every residence gets completed, as each and every retail space gets completed, that is money coming right in. That is basically someone's pay-to-play to come live in this city and be part of our infrastructure, be part of our reserves for water supply, for sewage treatment, all those things that we currently pay for, that will then be spread to them, and that will be readily part of what they pay immediately. So why we have some cockamamie 25-year plan to deal with money that's going to come in immediately as each thing is built out, I do fail to understand. I am not a finance expert. I'm not a development expert. I am a mere scientist and engineer who looks at numbers a lot, and these numbers are not making sense to me. As a town of, put out the number, 12,000, 13,000 residents versus Lakewood, 140,000, Denver, 560,000. These numbers are out of whack for our town. I want to see a successful town center, but I don't think financing it in this way is going to give us what we want and what we need and what will succeed. I'm just failing to see that in this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Anything else from town staff? Anything else from the town board? Do we need a motion to table this, or I'm not sure technically what we're doing here?
Yeah, let's do a motion to table it until Friday at 5 p.m.
Okay. Motion by trustee Williams, second by trustee Skumatz. Discussion regarding this? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Once again, very difficult for residents to understand this, and I'm sorry that it's so opaque at the moment, but hopefully things will become a little more clear on Friday. And sorry, it's a bad day for everybody involved. So, thank you very much. That brings us to item number 10, an executive session to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop a strategy for negotiations, and/or instruct negotiators pursuant to CRS 24-6-402.4.e to consider the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of real property pursuant to CRS 24-6-402.4.a, and to hold a conference with the town's attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions pursuant to CRS 24-6-402.4.b regarding property acquisition. Identification of the specific legal questions is not required, as such would compromise the purpose of the executive session. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
By trustee Skumatz, second by trustee Gregorius. Discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. We're in executive session. Thank you.